Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chop and Slice. I'm one of the co-hosts, Michael, and this is
Brandon.
We are here to talk about the original, A Nightmare on Elm Street. This movie came out in 1984. Very legendary movie. The first installment, the classic OG film. Personally, I can't decide whether I like this one or number 3 better, but I go back and forth on that. But we'll save that for a ranking one day. So we're going to break it down the movie, talk about what we like, what we didn't like, give our rankings. So the movie starts off with Freddy making the famous gloves, the 4 knives. Everybody sometimes thinks it's 5. It's really 4.
Right.
The only time it was 5
That
was in the 5th
new
one.
new Nightmare.
Then we meet one of our stars of the film, Tina. She's walking down a strange hallway, notices like a goat head. She goes down to the boiler room, and this is where Fred Krueger, as we know him, but we know him as Freddy, but Freddy appears behind her. Tina wakes up from the dream, noticing her pajama top had been clawed. So that's the first thing we've noticed, like, oh shoot, you can get affected in real life from these dreams.
Right. And her mother walks in and thinks that it was just her fingernails.
Yeah, her fingernails, Then we later see, girls playing jump rope, singing the famous Freddy song, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, blah, blah, blah. And then we see Johnny Depp make his debut appearance.
Right.
And it's not really a memorable debut, except for his kill. His death is pretty memorable.
Which is later in the movie.
But he really doesn't... I don't really... he's not a memorable character, really. Then we see Tina vent to her friend Nancy, which she is the main star of this movie, Heather Langenkamp. And they talk about the dream she had last night. And Nancy kind of knows what she's talking about because she's seen the same guy that Tina's seeing. And then basically, Nancy and her friends get together at Tina's house. Her parents are out of town. Tina's parents are out of town. So her friends are staying there because she is scared to sleep alone. Tina begins to describe to Nancy about the dream she had. Like I mentioned, Tina realizes that she had the same dream. Glenn goes out to investigate a strange noise outside, and that's when Rod Lane, Tina's
kinda
boyfriend,
tackles him from behind.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a jump scare a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of gets you off, point there. So, basically, Rod and Tina goes upstairs. They start getting intimate with one each other. Glenn, wants some of Nancy, but he gets rejected. Nancy basically is like, we're here to, help Tina, while Tina is up there getting freaky with Rod. So.
And he's just listening to it. Oh, he's like making these weird sounds like a wolf, like, arr!
Yeah, it's very weird. Then Nancy, she falls asleep in the bedroom upstairs. She has a dream about Freddy appearing through the wall. That's a super iconic scene.
Mm-hmm.
Then Tina is falling asleep. She passes out. And that's where she starts getting clawed on her stomach. And you can see...
Well, hold on a minute. Before that, she hears a noise coming from outside. While she's in the dream, she walks towards it. There's like shit being thrown at the wall. I don't know what it is. But then she goes out, and then Freddy, when she does finally go out, she hears like, Tina! And then he comes out with the long arms, and he chases her through.
That's where he cuts off his fingers, right?
Right, he cuts off his fingers to try and scare her, and then she starts freaking out in the dream, and Rod is like, whoa, what the hell is going on? So he wakes up, pulls the covers off, And that's when.
Well, you
gets-
see Freddy on top of her too.
Right, but she's seeing that.
Yeah,
Rod
yeah.
isn't seeing that.
Yeah. So then you see her stomach or her chest gets sliced. Blood starts leaking out. And then she starts moving up the wall. Freddy's like, we don't know what he's doing, but he's flinging her up the wall, upside down.
Well, she was even floating in midair.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Then she ends up dropping dead with blood all over the place. Nancy notices the screaming. She breaks it. Her and
Glenn.
break down the door, and then Rod is gone and out the window, so that makes it suspicious.
Very suspicious.
So at this time, he is the main suspect of the murder.
Right.
Nancy is very upset about the murder of her friend. She gets ready to go to school, but her mother urges her not to go. Says you need to get sleep, stuff like that. Like, what are you doing going to school? You know, the only time I've ever heard a parent yell at their kid not to go to school. Usually they're
I
telling
know,
them.
right?
So then she starts walking to school, and that's where Rod yanks her from the bushes, and it tries to explain, yo, look, I'm not the killer. I didn't do a goddamn thing. There was somebody else there. And Nancy, you know, she seems to believe him, I think. And then that's where her father,
Comes up with a gun.
Yep.
And tells him to hold still, and
he runs away, but then the cops trap him.
they find a switchblade on him too.
Yeah, so that makes it very suspicious.
So then he's taken into custody.
Yep, taken it into custody, and then Nancy still continues to go to school after that, and then we see her start to fall asleep in class.
And while she's asleep in class, there's kind of, I think in the dream, the guy's up there giving a speech and kind of starts talking normal, but then like getting all like creepy and
Yeah, he starts to get creepy, and we see Tina in a body bag, and that's pretty creepy.
yeah.
And she runs towards her, but we see Tina's body bag being dragged throughout the hallway and downstairs to the boiler room. And then we see Freddy chase her, and then, you know, he's trapping her in the boiler room. But then we see her burn. She's smart enough to figure out, hey, this stuff's real. So she puts her arm on the I don't know what you want to
It
call
was like a hot pipe or something.
a hot pipe, burning herself, and then she wakes up.
But I thought Freddy like made her do that with her arm.
No, she was smart enough to think about it. I remember her like looking around, and she physically puts her arm on the hot pipe, because you would think Freddy would know that if I do that, that could potentially wake her up. So she wakes up. She has the bruise on her, or the burn on her arm, and she starts screaming. The teacher wants her, you know, out of the classroom, and she says that, you know, she's gonna call her mom and stuff like that. So then later we see Nancy visit Rod in jail. Rod describes Freddy in her dream, and Nancy now believes that he didn't kill Tina.
Exactly.
He asks, "Do you believe that I did this?" And she says, "No, I don't." So then we go back at Tina's house. This is a very famous scene as well. Nancy is taking a bath, and then she falls asleep. We see the iconic claw go in between her legs. Freddy pulls her under the water. Nancy tries to swim back up, screaming. Her mother is very concerned. She hears the screams. She tries to get through the door. But Nancy, you know, she ends up waking up. So at this point, her mother is just like, she knows something's going on with her. She doesn't know what, but
Right.
she knows something is going on. So
Mm-hmm.
then we see Nancy. She's watching Dracula, falling asleep. But then later, luckily, Glenn sneaks up to Nancy's window. Nancy asks Glenn to stand guard while she sleeps. That's kind of the plan, to see, like, you know, just watch me when I'm sleeping to see if something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, Nancy falls asleep. She's in the dream. But then we notice, like, Glenn, he passed out. He threw her off.
Right. Yeah.
This guy just can't.
Douchebag.
This guy can't stay awake the entire movie. Anytime he's supposed to be up, he's falling asleep. It's insane. So Nancy, basically, she's in the dream. She sees Freddy and Rod from the jail cell. Like, there's a clear window. You can see what's going on, which is weird. You shouldn't be able to see what's going on in a cell like that.
Right.
And Nancy hears Tina's voice. Freddy appears behind Nancy and chases her around. Nancy runs in the house up the stairs. I think this is the point where the stairs are made like some sticky glue. Or does that come later?
No, that is the scene. Right.
Yeah.
That is where she tries to run up, and then Freddy's kind of like in the window of the door and was like posing as Nancy, and she's like, "Save me from Freddy." You know, it was pretty cool. And then he chases her up the stairs.
They start fighting and then rolling around, but then the alarm goes off, waking up
Nancy, and she wakes up screaming.
Well, Glenn is up too, but he pretended like he never passed out. He's like, "What are you talking about? I was awake before you were." Stuff like that. So then she starts,
bitching him out.
Yeah.
Calling him an idiot.
Yeah. Then the next scene, we go to Rod's funeral.
Well, no, before Rod's funeral, this was.
Oh yeah. Well,
they after that, she wants to run to just go look at him. Right. We haven't even gotten to the part.
Yeah, at that point, he's not dead yet, but Freddy does. Right when she goes to the police department, she goes and is yelling and screaming, pleading with the cops and her father. Her father is the lieutenant of the police department.
Right.
It's pretty important to mention too. About, please let me go see Rod. He's in danger. They're like, he's fine. He's in the cell. He's perfectly fine. Then at that point, Rod is sleeping, and we see Freddy sneaking up with the bed sheets and basically hangs Rob from the cell.
Mm-hmm. By the bed sheets.
So.
Damn.
After that, that's when we get to Rod's funeral. Nancy describes the murder, like who the killer is to her parents, what he looks like, stuff like that. And Nancy's mother basically tells her, you need to get help. So they take her to this hospital to get a dream analysis. Nancy starts screaming in her sleep and wakes up to her mother. Notices gray hair on Nancy from all the stress.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors try to sedate Nancy.
But she just shoved him.
Yeah, pretty much. And basically, she has a clawed arm and a hat she pulled out of her dream.
Pretty freaky. I mean, I would believe at this point,
yeah,
if I was the mother,
where'd she get this hat if she's not telling the truth?
Exactly. So
after that, Nancy confronts her mom about what she knows about Freddy, because in the hat you can see the name Fred. The name is Fred Krueger on the hat. Her mother actually slaps her, which is weird. I think it should have been the other way around. Her mother basically denies everything, pretending
she doesn't know shit.
Yeah. Nancy storms out of the house. She gets a book on booby traps. This is setting up, basically the final battle between the two. Nancy gets back, notices her mom is absolutely crazy. She puts bars in all the windows, the door frames and stuff like that. Nancy's mother invites her downstairs to the cellar to tell her the truth. This is where we find out who and what Fred Krueger really is.
Explains to her that he was a child murderer, and how to protect their children, they hunted him down in the middle of the night and burned him to a crisp.
Yep.
And she even pulls the claws out of the, what was it?
The little fire pit.
Right, and shows Nancy, and Nancy at this point seems pretty spooked out about it.
Yep. Because she recognizes that glove.
Right.
So Nancy calls Glenn. They're talking about putting a plan together. She develops a plan to pull Freddy out of the dream, and urging Glenn not to fall asleep.
Right. And he just doesn't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
He's just like, why would anybody want to kill me?
Yeah, he doesn't realize that he's in danger as well. So he's supposed to be up.
And the parents, his parents, doesn't take too kindly to her either, because they kind of see the bars in the window across the street and doesn't want her talking to him. So she tries to call him, but then the parents are hanging up on her, and so she can't get a hold of Glenn.
Yeah, so she's worried about Glenn at this point. And, Glenn just throws on his headphones, and starts listening to music. So Nancy basically sets up a stopwatch, preparing for Freddy. Glenn, unfortunately, falls asleep, and this is where he's pulled into his bed.
Iconic kill.
Yeah, it's super brutal. Probably the most gory kill, I think, of any Freddy movie.
Any gory kill of the 1980s. My God.
All this blood just splattering up the walls. It was super crazy.
Then when the cops show up, there's actually blood dripping from the ceiling.
Yeah. Well, you do see his mom walk in as well, while the blood's still.
Like, what a sight would that be?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to go into that room and see that. So, so after that, when Nancy, she ends up falling asleep, we see Freddy's. We see Freddy basically stalking Nancy. Nancy goes to look for Freddy, finds herself back in the boiler room. But before that, she does end up setting up all these traps. So
right,
she's
preparing,
like I said,
because she's got a plan together.
She's getting a plan together. So all these booby traps are being set up, wires and hammers and stuff like that. So, and then she falls asleep. Like I said, she goes to look for Freddy. She finds herself back in the boiler room where Freddy is. She calls out to Freddy, but no response. Nancy finds Glenn's headphones. Freddy chases her down the stairs and disappears. Nancy leaps towards Freddy and manages to pull Freddy out of the dream, which is crazy.
Well, before she even noticed, she kind of wakes up when her stopwatch goes off, because she lunged towards him just in time.
Just in time, yeah.
Before her stopwatch is about to wake her up. And then she wakes up. You don't see Freddy in sight at all.
No.
And then she begins to think, maybe I am crazy. And then, bam! Freddy appears right behind her and chases her through the house.
Yeah, basically, Nancy is able to light him on fire at one point.
Right. Well, they make their way downstairs. He's running into all of her traps. The hammer hits him, and the light bulb, right, the wire with the light bulb, blew up, and then goes down there, and she dumped something on him. It was like a bottle of something.
I think it was
like some sort of alcohol, I think.
Yeah, to set up the fire.
Right, and then lit the match on him, and then lights him on fire.
We see Freddy. It's a pretty cool shot of him just running through the house on fire.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty funny. And then you hear Nancy, screaming for her dad, come get this guy, help me, he's dead, I killed him.
Yeah, that dumbass cop was just standing there like, what do I do? Maybe
screaming.
I should get the lieutenant.
Yeah, maybe now we can go get the lieutenant. Nancy basically, learns of, the dad, the lieutenant, comes in the house. We see that Freddy is on top of Nancy's mom in the bed, like pushing her down on the bed and stuff, and then she floats into the bed.
The dad follows her upstairs because they see the trail of the footsteps of the fire.
Yeah.
They run upstairs and they pull the sheets off, and it's just her mom floating. I didn't quite understand that scene.
Yeah, I didn't either.
It was bizarre.
She gets trapped into the bed.
Right. And then one of the cops wanted to speak to the lieutenant. I think at this point he kind of believes her.
Right.
So he shuts the door on him, tries to have a moment with his daughter, Nancy. But she just kind of wants a moment to herself, so he leaves the room. And then that's when you see Freddy appear from the sheets.
Yep, we see Freddy appear. Nancy says, basically, I'm no longer afraid of you. And then Freddy lunges at her.
And she knows the secret now to not be afraid of him.
He disappears. And then that's when we think everything is all hunky-dory. We see all of her friends. She gets in the car with her friends. And then her mom is outside smiling, having a good time. But then we later see like the...
Freddy's arm bash through the window from inside.
Yep.
Pulling her in. And then for the end credits, it plays the Freddy song.
Yep.
And then that is the end credits.
That is the movie.
Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Great film.
Great film. I love it. It's well shot. It's very, very scary. Even it still holds up to this day. Even though, Freddy's only in it for like 7-something minutes, which is kind of crazy to think about. It feels like he's in it a lot longer just because of his presence and stuff. I really like this movie. Like I said, I don't know whether I like it Dream Warriors or this one better, but we'll get to that when we get to our rankings. But this is very iconic. Great first installment.
Very great.
I love Freddy. He's one of my favorites. He's I don't know. It's a really believable movie. Like, you could believe maybe something like this could happen where it's just going around the neighborhood haunting the teenagers of this neighborhood. It's very creepy. I think the acting is pretty good in this movie. The dialogue is pretty good. But at the end, I don't know whether that was a dream the entire time. Like, she pulled Freddy out, but how does Freddy go back into the dream world? I don't think she ever pulled him out, to be honest. Because you don't see him right away, when you pull out Freddy. So I don't think she actually pulled him out. What do you think?
I mean...
Because then how is he just back into the dream world?
Well, how does he always end up back in the dream world?
Yeah, but they don't explain that, Because, like, then is he in his mom's dream? How can he kill people if he's not in their dream?
You know what, honestly, what I think that thing is that whole scene is just to get people intrigued for a possible sequel. I really think that was the whole purpose of that scene.
Yeah.
Just to try to, get people to stay tuned for a potential sequel. Like, he could be coming back.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. They don't really explain that too well, what was going on there. Because, like, you don't know if it's a dream. You don't know. I don't know. I don't know if she really pulled him out.
I just don't think they just had a good ending. So they just... And they weren't... It's not like they were really expecting this movie to really blow up into something big.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So they just kind of...
But
threw whatever in there.
Written and directed by Wes Craven.
Yes.
Super iconic, and he got the inspiration from, what was it, a homeless man he saw?
Yeah, I watched the documentary on it. He's seen, like, some guy approaching in a strange hat, like, to his house.
That's where he got the idea of Freddy.
He went down there to answer the door, and he was gone, and he kind of got the inspiration from Freddy. I think that's how the story goes. But...
So, yeah. Love this movie. Epic. Legendary. Freddy's one of the biggest horror icons of all time. You can argue whether he's number one even. He's up there. Trust me. He is a monster. He is legendary. He's epic.
Absolutely.
So, rankings-wise, yeah. I'd give this movie... Honestly, I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. There's not a lot wrong with this movie. It's a beautifully shot movie. It's very intriguing. Great acting. Heather Langenkamp is great in this movie. Johnny Depp is pretty good for what his role is. Yeah, I love it. It's a great film. Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, this is a phenomenal movie. I really have nothing bad to say about it. I mean, this movie really is truly flawless, especially for its time. It still holds up to this day. It'll still scare the shit out of young crowds. Honestly, I gotta give this movie 10 out of 10. Absolute great movie. There's nothing bad I can say about it. I mean, this this movie scared the shit out of the generation before me, scared the shit out of my generation, and it still will scare the shit out of the generation after mine. So, I mean, great movie, flawless movie, well done by Wes Craven. Then that leaves it at a chop and slice rating at a 19.5
Out of 20.
out of 20.
So,
Phenomenal movie.
Yeah, phenomenal. And many great sequels to come after it. So, Freddy character is great. Still holds up. Very legendary. And this movie will forever be one of my favorites. And I will appreciate it till the end of time. So, thank you guys. That's going to wrap us up for the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Hopefully you guys go see this movie if you haven't seen it. You have to see it if you're a horror fan. Please go see it. It is an absolute legendary film. I love this movie. Love Freddy in it. Love everything about this movie. So, yeah. So
just remember, Freddy's coming for you. Lock your door. And never sleep again.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys can sleep well at night. So don't. Hopefully you're not having nightmares. So. Please like and subscribe if you guys would like to. And thank you guys, and we will be back. Have a great day, have a great night, wherever you're at, and hopefully you enjoyed this. Later, you guys.